Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking about the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas. So let's just get right into it. So this is easily Penelope Douglas's biggest series. The books in this series are ginormous. There are a bunch of them. It was just very overwhelming for me to really sit down and get to this. The only reason I actually ended up doing it was because my library got the audiobooks. So I was like, okay, maybe I can handle a book that long if it's an audiobook. And I went into this not really knowing a ton. I know that there are a lot of really die-hard fans of this series and a lot of people who think it's super overhyped. So I was kind of went into it in the middle, not really expecting anything great but not expecting anything terrible either. So I kind of went in blind. I knew there was 4 guys. I knew everybody loved Damon. That was literally all I knew. So I started Corrupt, and honestly, when I read it, I was like, okay, this is really good. And I gave it 4.5 stars after I finished it. And then I kept thinking about it for 2 days afterwards, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna move it to 5 stars because I loved that book. I think it was so well done for what it was. It was just I kept going back and rereading parts because I loved that book so much. And if you don't know anything about the series, this first book follows, it sort of sets up the whole series in a way because it follows, there are 4 guys, the 4 horsemen. And so there is Michael, Will, Kai, and Damon. So the first book follows Michael mostly and Rika, and all of them sort of flash back between high school and present day. And in this case, it is flashing back between a Devil's Night, which is their sort of the night before Halloween. They go and pull all kinds of pranks and stuff, and they call it Devil's Night. And so it's flashing back and forth between that in their high school time and them presently. So the year it's flashing back to is the year that Kai, Will, and Damon ended up getting arrested because videos got out of some of their Devil's Nights pranks or different things they had done that they had filmed. And the 3 of them and Michael, who doesn't end up in prison because he's not in any of the videos, ends up, the 4 of them decide that they're going to go after Rika when they all get out. They're all waiting for Damon to be released. He had the longest sentence, and he finally gets out, and they're like, cool, we're going to go after her, make her life hell because she's the one that did this to us. And so the whole book is them just kind of, I don't want to say haunting her because that sounds kind of weird, but that's almost the best description I can think of for this, is they are just on top of her, following her, making her life miserable kind of thing. But at the same time, she's always had a thing for Michael, even though she was dating his younger brother. And so she's kind of in this weird back and forth where she doesn't really know they're out to get her. And so she keeps kind of getting closer to Michael and then being like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And like I said, I love this book. I thought it was so well done. I do know this one, a lot of people say you can read it as a standalone and just stop there. And like I said, I kind of wish I had done that because I found after this, things just got so overwhelming for me and so confusing. But like I said, this one was really good, loved it. The next one is Hideaway, which is Kai's book, and I didn't really by the end of Corrupt, there wasn't one guy that I was like, okay, I really want his book next. I just really didn't care about the rest of them, to be honest, which I felt kind of odd about because everyone, like I said, I feel like everyone says they hate Corrupt and they don't like Michael and Rika and they like all the other couples, and I'm kind of the opposite, where I don't care about any of the other couples, I only like Michael and Rika. And so this one follows Kai, and this one is more of I don't want to say haunted house kind of vibes, but maybe. They're basically looking for this 12th floor that's supposed to exist on this abandoned hotel where the family supposedly lived, and they're looking for someone, and so they're exploring all these buildings, and Kai ends up running into this girl who, once again, they flash back to them meeting in the past. And I can't say a lot about these because I'm trying to keep these spoiler free, and obviously if I start talking about everything that happens in the next books, it's not going to be spoiler free. But Kai has his girl in this book, Banks, and honestly didn't love this one. I gave it 4 stars. I think it was very long, and like I said, some of these were just way too long. This one wasn't as bad, But I found this was definitely the one where I got like the first little inkling of like a little bit confused. Like I had to Google the summaries for these books afterwards some of the times because I just like didn't understand what was even happening. And sometimes I think that was literally a result of me thinking that there was no possible way that that could actually be the plot, but it was actually the plot. And so it was just like a little confusing for me. Like I said, I gave this one 4 stars. Thought it was okay. Wasn't super interested in like the other guys, like I said. And so like I wasn't super excited for this one. Next was Kill Switch, which is Damon's book, which like I said, I knew everybody loved Damon. They were all hyped up for him. And I will say his story was good. I did like the sort of how it was done. I liked the storyline behind it and how it came to be. And just the general plot was good. Where I got lost was, like I said, there was like kind of these like interwoven plot lines throughout the books that kind of lost me, that like carried forward probably from the second book all the way through, and I just didn't make the connections. Like I didn't really understand what they were talking about some of the times. This one I found in particular, I put this, I believe, in my Goodreads review of this book. I find with Penelope Douglas, a lot of times she kind of makes her books seem edgier than they are. And I don't know if this is just me being like desensitized to like all the crazy things in books at this point, but I found like the way Damon was sort of shown in the other books, I was expecting this dude to be absolutely insane. Like, we're talking like Den of Vipers. I was thinking this guy was gonna be nuts. And he just wasn't. And so I was kind of like, okay, like, why were we making him out to be this like really crazy dude that everyone was like, oh my god, he's so like crazy and insane and whatever. And he just like wasn't. He was so normal that I was like, what's up with this? Like, there's one thing that he did that you could maybe argue made him insane, but like I thought it was personally well justified, so I was like, didn't think that was a problem. And I don't know, like I said, maybe I'm just desensitized to that, but I don't know. I found it was like trying to be creepy, but it just wasn't for me. And I kind of felt that way throughout the whole series, where like as the books went on, I felt like they were trying to get more and more dramatic about like what was at stake and whatever, and I was like, really nothing was happening like that was really that dramatic or like worth that sort of like stress that they were acting like there was. And so I wasn't a huge fan of that. Next was one of the little novellas, which was Conclave. I'm not usually a huge fan of novellas in series. I find they're usually pretty pointless. They like, you could read the series without them, and this one I would argue is probably the same. You probably could have skipped this. I thought this was gonna like bridge Damon and Will's book in a way that would make Will's book make more sense and like just like be sort of the bridge between characters, you know? But I didn't find that it really did anything. It was literally just they have like a meeting on a boat, and that was the entire book. And I was like, okay, that was weird, but whatever. I gave this one 3 stars because I literally didn't know what to rate it. And I think this is where I started to get really confused. And I don't know, I wasn't, like I said, there was some underlying plot lines that I just wasn't getting. I don't know why, like, they just didn't make sense to me. I must have missed something in one of the earlier books that kept coming up repeatedly that I just didn't get. Next was Nightfall, which was Will's book, and I was super, super excited for this book after reading Damon's book. I had high hopes for this one because by the end of Damon's book, Will is just like drinking all the time, totally miserable, like whatever. And I was like, okay, like that could be like a really good, you know, start to a book. And it just like didn't go there. This book starts so almost like abruptly, like you're literally dropped right into the story, and once again I was confused because you're dropped right into the middle of this thing that actually makes no sense. I still think this makes no sense, and I've gone back and tried to like reread like 6 times. But basically, I don't know if this is really going to be a spoiler, so I'm going to say if you don't want to know anything about these books, I'm going to put a timestamp on here that you can skip to, because like I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that happens in this one, and it might be considered a spoiler by some people. So if you want to skip everything about this book, just like timestamp somewhere. But this one follows them when they are, basically Will has been dumped at this school, or like prison, I guess, not school. It's called Black Church, and it's supposed to be like this prison that like all the rich people send their like troubled sons to because they're like, they can't send them to prison because it'll affect their image. And the book starts with this girl just randomly being dumped there, and it's like all boys, so no one knows how this girl got in or why she's there. But she knows Will from the past, So he's kind of like, what the heck is she doing here? And this one I found just like so confusing in like kind of a dumb way, because I didn't get what this black church thing really was, because they're like, oh, there's no guards and there's no people here to make sure that they stay there, but yet they were all living there, and kind of very like, there was a Lord of the Flies reference at the beginning of this book, I'm pretty sure, and I think that that's what this was supposed to be like, was like all these boys like living on their own and establishing their leader and whatever kind of thing, and I just like didn't care for that, wasn't interested. This book I found was one of the ones that was excessively long. I was so bored by that halfway point that I was zoning in and out with the audiobook, which is why I know I got even more confused, because I had no idea what was happening anymore. They also, in this book, for whatever reason, I don't know why in the last book of the series you would introduce so many new characters, but there were so many side characters introduced into this one that I could not keep any of them like straight in my head. I was mixing them all up all the time. I had no idea which ones were like the good ones or the bad ones, or like who was after who. Like, I could not keep any of that straight, because I think they introduced like at least 6 new characters in this book all at the same time, and I just didn't care, couldn't understand who was who. There was no real reason for there to be that many of them, and I just didn't care anymore. And this is where I started getting like really lost and confused, and I found that even like the whole plot of this book was just stupid. I think like I didn't understand the point of it at all, and that could be, like I said, because I was zoning out. Maybe I missed something that was like super important to the story and explaining why it existed, but it was so long for what it was. It was unnecessary to begin with, I think, and I didn't care. I'm not usually someone super picky with people in books like sleeping around, I guess. I don't know. That doesn't really bother me, but in this book it was just so odd how they went about it. It was like all these couples were like intermixing, and just at like the most random times. Like, there was no reason for it. It didn't do anything for the plot or the book or anything. Like, I don't know if that was supposed to be what kept you interested, but I was just like, why is this happening again? Like, it just seemed to be inserted in the book at like random points for no reason, and I didn't love that. I felt like it was super awkward and like weirdly like stuck in the book. It didn't make any sense. And oftentimes I would literally be confused as to what was even going on, because they intermixed couples so much. I'm like, wait, who even is this? And I don't know. I just, by the end, I was over it. I then read Fire Night, which is like the last little novella. And this one again had some little plot thing that was like a key part of this that I missed somewhere. Didn't understand what was really going on. It was like, okay, I think I gave this like 2 or 3 stars. I don't know. I don't even know if I rated it. But like, honestly, by the time I got to the end of this, I was just glad it was over. I think, like I said, Corrupt was so good that I had such high hopes for the rest of them, and I just think they all kind of let me down, which was really sad, because I really wanted to love this series, because so many people do. I'm glad I didn't buy them, though. I almost bought the entire series when she announced the cover change, because I was going to get the original covers. But I'm glad I didn't buy them. I may buy Corrupt, because like I said, I did really love that one. But I just, after that, I felt like it was so unnecessary. It was so over dramatic. Like, we're supposed to believe these people are like in their mid-20s, I think, and they're like ruling the world and whatever, and I'm just like, I wasn't buying it. It was very sort of like cheesy and just not realistic in any kind of way. Like, I'm not someone who normally really cares if my books are realistic, but this was just like, they were so over dramatic, and like they were acting like so much was at stake, and they had to like run this whole town, and I'm like, where are they letting 20-year-olds run the whole town? Because I've never seen that happen, and that was just like this whole book, or the whole series really, and I just like didn't vibe with it. I don't know if that was just me. Like I said, I was disappointed I didn't love Damon more, because everybody else seemed to love him so much. I still like Michael and Rika the best. I'm not sorry. I think Corrupt was the best book, and the rest were just honestly unnecessary. I would have been fine without the rest of them, and I just really liked Corrupt, obviously. But that is everything for today's video. I wish this could have been like a more positive video, but I just didn't vibe with these books the way I thought I was going to. But I do have a really exciting new series that I'm going to film a reading vlog for soon, so that'll be up hopefully later this month. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I do new book videos every single week, and I'll see you next time.